Hello, hello, hello. It is November the 7th, Wednesday, the day after Election Day, which I stayed up to about three or four to watch elections. Democrats did win the House. Republicans maintained the Senate, which is good. Means there is a solid balance. You can't trust a full Republican legislative and executive branch to do things for the people because they're corporately inclined. And luckily, it will put a check on the orange thing in the White House. So, he'll have to either reach across the aisle and stop calling everybody names or get nothing done. So that's one thing. Number two, we do now, and I feel this is most important, we do now have a progressive caucus in Congress instead of just one or two members like a Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. We do now have. That's all right. Go ahead. I just started. What'd you want? Sad to hear. I was just starting. That's all right. Anything. She's just in the grieving stage, I guess. That was family telling me about a neighbor. Her husband just passed away. So anyway, um, as I was saying, we do now have a progressive caucus instead of just a Bernie, Tulsi, and Ro Khanna, just a few members that we can reliably count on. There has been elected a number of, you know, anti-corporate PAC, pro-Medicare for all, pro-worker progressives. They don't take corporate money, or they work for progressive causes to help the citizenry. So that's definitely, I feel, a plus from last night's elections. The biggest thing we should take away. I mean, it's nice to finally have a stopgap against the orange thing in the White House, but we now have a progressive caucus to start pushing our causes. We still need allies. As much as you may not like some of these people, I may not like some of these people, we're not going to do it on our own. It's just not going to happen. We still need allies, but we're starting to form a core that is uncorrupted. So, it's getting there. So hopefully we can start turning around some of what's his name's policies and the Republicans' policies in the White House and the Congress. Start switching those around, flipping those over. 'Cause none of them have been good for the people. None. Their vaunted tax cuts for the rich, solely for the rich. If I made millions and billions, it would still be my responsibility to, put it back into the community, back into the country to help people. And that's the problem. We've hit a second Gilded Age. And the rich, they don't care. The corporations, they don't care. We are essentially in the second Gilded Age. But now we have a progressive caucus, and it can fight back. We just need to spread the message. Unfortunately, there is propaganda in the groups like MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, Breitbart. You know, the the was it three broadcast channels: CBS, ABC, NBC, and the Blaze. All of them lie. They're propaganda machines. Is what they are for the rich. But now we have a progressive people's caucus. And we can be happy. And no time to sit really on our laurels, though. You can take you a breather, take you a small break. But we've got to keep going because 2020 now is just around the corner. It is time to grow. We've got a core. Time to grow. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Let's get into today's news. See what's going on. They're, of course, talking about the midterms. There are still a few seats open. Sean Hannity absent from election coverage. Huh. Apparently that's news. Yeah, CNN journalist Jim Acosta banned from the White House after Trump, in his thin skin, gets angry and calls him a very rude person. He's being so dictator-like. Not, Hitler during World War II, but during the 30s when he first takes power. He's slowly peeling apart our First Amendment and the freedom of the press when he takes away Trump's White House press credentials. Because I've seen the video. Acosta just asked him. He's trying to ask him, what's going on? Da 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 da. And Trump angrily, in his thin skin, tries to blast him back. And now he's gone after freedom of the press again by revoking journalists' First Amendment. Pakistan blasphemy case. Asia Bibi freed from jail. Pakistani Christian woman acquitted of blasphemy after spending 8 years on death row has been freed from prison, her lawyer says. Huh. And more news on midterms. Trump hails tremendous success. What, because he didn't lose the Senate? You lost the House. That means you're going to have to reach across the aisle or get nothing done. Uh, he thinks he's a dictator. He acts like he's a dictator. It's frighteningly, he's fired Sessions like Nixon's Saturday Night Massacre right after the Democrats have won the House because he's afraid that now they'll dig something up. And he's wanting to get his new attorney general to fire Mueller. And that's what scares me. We're going to have a Saturday Night Massacre incident here. He's fired Sessions and he's got his new attorney general. I guarantee you he wants him to fire Mueller. It's the Saturday Night Massacre all over again. That happened under Nixon, so. Let's see. What else is going on in the news? There's news about the midterms some more. Attorney General Jeff Sessions being fired. The war in Yemen. Really, we need to stop selling Saudi Arabia and the UAE, weapons for their war. Yemen does not deserve this. The sad part is Saudi Arabia. It was like 14 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, and yet we continue kissing their tail end. We should be pushing back. Instead, it's here, have some bombs and murderous stuff to kill further. Honestly. Let's look at some news and science. She blinded me with science. Science! Oh, God, my chest. Still hurts to sneeze after having the triple bypass. My chest still kills me when I sneeze. The House Science Committee is back in Democrat control. Maybe we can get science back into the public spotlight instead of these fake hypotheses like flat Earth or, what's another one? There's anti-vaxxers, or there's several of these I call them idiot conspiracies floating around. We have new members with actual scientific backgrounds. We have registered nurses, former nuclear engineers, people who worked in scientific fields actually in the House. It's wonderful to have people with brains in positions of power instead of, I'm a corrupt doo-doo-doo, dodo bird. I'm a corrupt jackass who can't think. I only want to do things for money. But we have now actual scientists in Congress, and it feels wonderful. Oh, God, it feels great. Let's see. Scientists theorize new origin story for Earth's water. NASA hosts science chat and two upcoming out of this world streams. I guess streams. One was today at 2 p.m. Eastern. Live science chat. So, okay. To discuss upcoming encounters of two of the agents' planetary ... Something to do with Cassini, though. Get off the screen. The little Windows button act like it was hit, and it probably was just brushed against. Science candidates prevail in the U.S. midterms. So again, that's talked about. How many mosquitoes can you squish into a syringe? Popular science. Wow, what a question. There's science news. Hopefully, with people with education and who do know science in the actual Congress, we could go, yes, I know what science is. Uh, we need some stuff done about climate change because one of the big things of the Republicans last time is like, I'm not a scientist. Well, these people are, so listen to them. Now, for today in history, which it is November the 7th, Magic Johnson announces he is HIV positive. What year? 1991. I was 11 years old. Doesn't that make me feel ancient? On this day in 1940, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, collapsed in Washington State. You can, if you've ever seen footage of it, the bridge literally did this type of movement in the winds. It's like, wow, how did that not fall before then? Okay, people keep trying to post on my Facebook and it keeps going, you got messages. Give me a second here. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Colorado cake baker refused to bake a cake for a gay couple now has a gay governor. That is so hilarious. Anyway, back to today in history. Um, Today in 1989, two African American firsts in politics. New York elects its first African American mayor in New York City, and Virginia elects its first African American governor. So Dave Deakins in New York, and in Virginia, Douglas Wilder. And I remember both those. Well, not both of them, but I remember Wilder because, I'm from Virginia, so I remember Wilder being governor. On today in 1944, FDR reelected a third time, I should say. No other president has been elected more than twice. And then they made it a rule that you can only have two terms as president. because Roosevelt got elected 4 times. 4 times. He died in his 4th term in office, but no one else really gave him much of a challenge. His Republican challenger was Thomas Dewey, which I believe ran again and lost to Roosevelt's vice president who became president. What was his name? Shoot. Now I can't remember his name. He was after Roosevelt, but before Republican president, who was actually Eisenhower. Yeah, after it was after Roosevelt and before Eisenhower. I can't remember his name. It escapes me. It's a problem with having memory loss. But anyway, there's a famous news picture. It shows Dewey defeats. Is it Truman? Is it Harry S. Truman? Anyway, but it shows they were wrong because I think it was Truman. He won the election instead of Dewey. But the newspaper showed Dewey as winning. Since then, they started creating poll companies like Gallup and so on, who actually started looking at it scientifically. And it was like, hey, we can start predicting these if we look at them scientifically. Yeah. I think it was Harry S. Truman. And you got Eisenhower, Kennedy, LBJ, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan. I'm wanting to say it's Harry S. Truman. It's going to bug me. Anyway, uh, 1885, you got Canada's Transcontinental Railway completed on this state. And on this date in 1972, Nixon reelected. On this date in 1966, Secretary of Defense Robert S. McNamara shouted down at a Harvard speech. Yep, that's when the storm against Vietnam was really growing. Today, in 1944, besides winning a 3rd term, he also wins his 4th in 44. So in 40, he wins his 3rd, and 44, he wins his 4th term. And like I said, he passed away in the 4th term, but yeah. 4 terms in office. But I think his successor, Truman, said helped set that presidents from then on could only have 2 terms. Today, in 1916, Jeannette Rankin becomes the first U.S. Congresswoman. She's from Montana. On this day in 1980, Steve McQueen, the King of Cool, the actor, dies at the age of 50. On this date in 1957, the Gaither Report calls for more U.S. missiles and fallout shelters. The final report from a special committee called by President Dwight D. Eisenhower to review the nation's defense readiness indicates that the United States is falling far behind the Soviets in missile capabilities and urges a vigorous campaign to build fallout shelters. Huh. On this day in 1861, it's the Battle of Belmont, Missouri, when Union forces, a division led by Grant, overruns a Confederate camp. Grant, at this point, is not yet the Union general. He is just a division, general or commander. He eventually becomes the general over the entire army, though. And that is this day in history. There's a little look at today's items. My shirt's a little wrinkled because I haven't really had it folded or hung up. I've just kind of had it laying over there. It's been clean. It's just, yeah. I'm not the best at being tidy, if you will. Regardless, that means it is now time. We finished last time with the introduction to Freakonomics. Monday, we started into Chapter 2 for our history. Today, we're going to start into Chapter 1 for Freakonomics. And then Friday, I believe we're on Chapter 2 of our Western civilization. But anyway, let's get into Chapter 1, shall we? School teachers, okay, Chapter 1. What do school teachers and sumo wrestlers have in common? Seem very unsimilar subjects, but we're going to see how they connect here. Imagine for a moment that you are the manager of a daycare center. You have a clearly stated policy that children are supposed to be picked up by 4 p.m., but very often parents are late. The result, at a day's end, you have some anxious children and at least one teacher who must wait around for the parents to arrive. What to do? A pair of economists who heard of this dilemma, it turned out to be a rather common one, offered a solution. Find the tardy parents. After all, why should the daycare center take care of these kids for free? The economists decided to test their solution by conducting a study of 10 daycare centers in Haifa, Israel. The study lasted 20 weeks, but the fine was not introduced immediately. For the first 4 weeks, the economists simply kept track of the number of parents who came late. There were, on average, 8 late pickups per week per daycare center. In the 5th week, the fine was enacted. It was announced that any parent arriving more than 10 minutes late would pay $3 per child for each incident. The fee would be added to the parent's monthly bill, which was roughly $380. After the fine was enacted, the number of late pickups promptly went up. Before, there were 20 late pickups per week, more than double the original average. The incentive had plainly backfired. Economics is, at root, the study of incentives, how people get what they want or need, especially when other people want or need the same thing. Economists love incentives. They love to dream them up and enact them, study them, and tinker with them. The typical economist believes the world has not yet invented a problem that he cannot fix if given a free hand to design a proper incentive scheme. His solution may not always be pretty. It may involve coercion or exorbitant penalties or the violation of civil liberties. But the original problem, rest assured, will be fixed. An incentive as a bullet, a lever, a key, an often tiny object with astonishing power to change a situation. So here in this instance, we see $3 for any parent that arrives 10 minutes or more late to pick up their children. Personally, I feel that incentive was probably worth it to them. Okay, then I can arrive much later. I'll pay a $3 fine. So I feel some parents saw it as, okay, yeah, we'll do it. I'll pay $3 because I've got stuff I can get done extra if all it's going to cost me is $3. Because usually in today's society, it's companies that will cause the issue. We need you to stay overtime. We need you to do this. We need you to do that. And it's usually the fault of a company. So I feel a lot of parents probably saw it as, yeah, I'll pay it. I'll let me get some extra stuff done, pick up what I need. I'll pay the $3 gladly. So I feel it wasn't so much an incentive to pick up as, yeah, I'll do it. We all learn to respond to incentives, negative and positive, from the outset of life. If you toddle over to a hot stove and touch it, you burn a finger. If you bring home straight A's from school, you get a new bike. If you're spotted picking your nose in class, you get ridiculed. But if you make the basketball team, you move up the social ladder. If you break curfew, you get grounded. But if you ace your SATs, you get to go to a good college. If you flunk out of law school, you have to go to work at your father's insurance company. But if you perform so well that a rival company comes calling, you become a vice president and no longer have to work for your father. If you become so excited about your new vice president job that you drive home at 80 miles per hour, you get pulled over by the police and fined $100. But if you hit the sales projections and collect a year-end bonus, you not only aren't worried about $100 ticket, but can also afford to buy that Viking range you've always wanted, and on which your toddler can now burn his own finger. An incentive is simply a means of urging people to do more of a good thing and less of a bad thing. But most incentives don't come about organically. Someone, an economist or a politician or a parent, has to invent them. For 3 year old, your 3 year old eats all your her vegetables for a week. She wins a trip to the toy store. A big steelmaker belches too much smoke into the air. The company is fined for each metric ton of pollution or pollutants over the legal limit. Too many Americans aren't paying their fair share of income tax. It was the economist Milton Friedman who helped come up with a solution to this one: automatic tax withholding from employees' paychecks. So there were a lot of Americans that weren't paying their taxes, so it started being an idea that, hey, just automatically withhold money from a paycheck. You'll either still owe or you'll have paid so much into it, you get money back. So that's where that idea comes from. There are three basic flavors of incentive: economic, social, and moral. Very often, a single incentive scheme will include all three values. Think about the anti smoking campaign of recent years. The addition of $3 per pack sin tax is a strong economic incentive against buying cigarettes. The banning of cigarettes in restaurants and bars is a powerful incentive. And when the US government asserts that terrorists raised money by selling black market cigarettes, that acts as a rather jarring moral incentive. Some of the most compelling incentives yet invented have been put in place to deter crime. Considering this fact, it might be worthwhile to take a familiar question: why is there so much crime in modern society, and stand it on its head? Why isn't there a lot more crime? After all, every one of us regularly passes up opportunities to maim, steal, and defraud. The chance of going to jail, thereby losing your job, your house, and your freedom, all of which are essentially economic penalties, is certainly a strong incentive. But when it comes to crime, people also respond to moral incentives. They don't want to do something they consider wrong. And social incentives, they don't want to be seen by others as doing something wrong. For certain types of misbehavior, social incentives are terribly powerful. In the echo of Hester Prynne's Scarlet Letter, many American cities now fight prostitution with a shaming offensive, posting pictures of convicted Johns and prostitutes on websites or on local access television, which is a more horrifying deterrent. A $500 fine for soliciting a prostitute, or the thought of your friends and family ogling you on www.hookersandjohns.com. Quite frankly, I feel that prostitution should be legal. Well, regulated, but legal. I feel it shouldn't be used for a shaming matter. It's that Christianity, which unfortunately feels like many Christians are faker than anything nowadays. Especially right wing Christians, your fake is everything, right and left. Your own Bible says you don't need to worry about politics, you'll get your reward in heaven. Give unto Caesar what is his. Leave earthly politics alone. You know, there's something like that in the Bible where it basically says, yeah, you shouldn't really have to worry and meddle in worldly, earthly matters. of politics and so on because you get your own heavenly reward. But no, they have to meddle. They can't leave it alone. Anyway, so through a complicated, haphazard, and constantly readjusted web of economic, social, and moral incentives, modern society does its best to militate, militate against crime. Some people would argue that we don't do a very good job. But taking the long view, that is clearly not true, considering the historical trend in homicide, not including wars, which is both the most reliably measured crime and best barometer of the world's overall crime rate. These statistics, compiled by the criminologist Manuel Eisner, track the historical homicide levels in 5 European regions. Homicides per 100,000 people has a little chart here. It's got on the left-hand side 13th and 14th century, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 1900 to 1949, and 1950 to 1994. And along the top, it's got England, then Netherlands and Belgium, then Scandinavia, then Germany and Switzerland, and then Italy. There's the little chart if you want to see it. But yeah, in England, it is showing over time, it definitely has fallen. Belgium and the Netherlands definitely has fallen. Scandinavia, the same. Germany and Switzerland, the same. Italy, the same. There's a clear decline over of homicides over the centuries, even though our populations boomed. Yes, per century. I was trying to think millennia or century, but millennia is every 1,000 years. The steep decline in these numbers over the centuries suggests that for the use of the gravest human concerns, getting murdered, the incentives that we collectively cook up are working better and better. So, what was wrong with the incentive at the Israeli daycare centers? So we're coming back to the original question about the Israeli daycare center incentives, about $3 for every parent later than 10 minutes. You have probably already guessed that the $3 fine was simply too small. For that price, a parent with one child could afford to be late every day and pay only an extra $60 per month, just 1/6 of the base fee. As babysitting goes, that's pretty cheap. What if the fine had been set at $100 instead of $3? That would have likely put an end to the late pickups, though it would have also engendered plenty of ill will. Any incentive is inherently a trade off. The trick is to pick the balance of the extremes, which is pretty basic common sense. You want something that incentivizes someone to do something, but not give them the wrong idea of what you want done. So you gotta kind of watch the extremes you go to. There was another problem with the daycare center fine. It substituted an economic incentive, the $3 penalty, for a moral incentive, the guilt of parents were supposed to feel when they come late. For just a few dollars each day, parents could buy off their guilt. Furthermore, the small size of the fine sent a signal to the parents that late pickups weren't such a big problem. If the daycare center suffers only $3 worth of pain and for each late pickup, why bother to cut short your tennis game? Indeed, when the economists eliminated the $3 fine in the 17th week of their study, the number of late arriving parents didn't change. Now they could arrive late, pay no fine, and feel no guilt. Such is the strange and powerful nature of incentives. A slight tweak can produce drastic and often unforeseen results. Thomas Jefferson noted this while reflecting on the tiny incentive that led to the Boston Tea Party and, in turn, the American Revolution. So inscrutable is the arrangement of causes and consequences in this world that a two-penny duty on tea, unjustly imposed in the sequestered part of it, changes the condition of all its inhabitants. In the 1970s, researchers conducted a study that, like the Israel daycare study, pitted a moral incentive against an economic incentive. In this case, they wanted to learn more about the motivation behind blood donations. Their discovery: when people are often given a small stipend for donating blood rather than simply being praised for their altruism, they tend to donate less blood. The stipend turned out to be a noble act of charity into a painful way to make a few dollars and wasn't worth it. What if the blood donors had been offered an incentive of $50 or $500 or $5,000? Surely the number of donors would have changed dramatically. Again, you have to know the extremes, which way to go. My camera screen keeps freezing there. What was I doing? Surely the number of donors would have changed dramatically. But something else would have changed dramatically as well. Or for every incentive has its dark side. If a pound of blood were suddenly worth $5,000, you can be sure that plenty of people would take note. They might literally steal blood at knife point. They might pass off pig blood as their own. They might circumvent donation limits by using fake IDs. Whenever or whatever the incentive, whatever the situation, dishonest people will try to gain an advantage by whatever means necessary. Or as W.C. Fields once said, a thing worth having is a thing worth cheating for. Also, I guess, kind of similarly, my dad used to say, it isn't cheating if the ref didn't see it. Usually referring to professional wrestling. I used to watch it a lot when I was a kid. That's something he used to say. It isn't cheating if the ref didn't see it. But anyway, we're going to stop there. We'll pick back up next, read some more next Wednesday. Because my leg's getting kind of numb. And I'm getting thirsty. I should have got me a drink before I started, and I could have gone maybe a little longer. Page 21. But we'll read some more of that chapter Wednesday. Remember, Friday, we do continue along in Western Civ. But for now, educate thyself. Read, think, study, learn. Use your brain. It's something I feel is too little of in our world today. We need to think more. But for now, that's all. I love you all, and I will see you again Friday. Hopefully, I'll have a video up this week, though. Probably Friday as well. Anyway, later.